So first, a little bit about myself. I have more than 4 years of experience in this field. I mostly work at Evolutio, like it's presented here. And I also do some freelance jobs in my spare time. And it's mostly back office and management software. So I use these 3 frameworks, HTMX, Django, and Svelte. So here is some examples of my work. I have in the left, we have an event management software, and in the right, driving school management software. So as you can see, it's mostly lists and forms, the usual. So what is a back office for the people that don't know or don't are a part of the field? A back office is the part of an application that provides support for how we interact and how we view the front office or the presentation layer of the application. And it is usually a set of interfaces that allow us to manage the data, control how it is presented and which data is presented. So as I said, mostly back offices are just list and CRUD operations. So it's usually not very hard stuff. So CRUD, what is CRUD? For a data model, for a data instance, we have 4 operations: create, read, update, and delete. These are database operations that most of you are familiar with. Simple concepts. Django provides us already with some generic views that allow us to make these operations in a very quick and fast way. Create, read, update, delete, and list view allow us to create these interfaces without a lot of work and by exposing our models in a unique way. And even if we need more advanced features, we can also customize them or use third-party packages like Django filters. So here, when we need more advanced features, like multiple object manipulation, we can always use formsets. It's an integrated feature. They provide a layer of abstraction and allow us to use multiple forms in a single page. And we can post, or in this case, submit multiple forms with a single request. These forms can be added, removed, reordered at will, but they require that each action forces a page refresh. The solution offered by Django and other 3 third-party packages is that we use a file called jQuery formset.js that is included in the code base. And what it does is DOM manipulation and duplicates or clones parts of the form, or in this case, changes parts of the form. In the image you see here, we have this list of forms. Each row has a unit name, unit description, and resident. Each row is a form. If we want to add 4, 5, 6 units at the same time without refreshing the page in this case, we just press add another and it will clone the last form and clear up the fields. What are the drawbacks of using form sets? The documentation is very poor compared with regular Django forms. They can be complex, especially for newcomers. Advanced customization using model form set factory doesn't work, as it is the preferred method given by the documentation to create form sets. They require the JavaScript and they create a jQuery dependency where we don't need one. And there isn't any generic class-based view for it. You need to make a function-based view or implement it yourself in a class-based view. So what is the common solution presented by the market? We need to switch the presentation all to JavaScript frameworks, serialize data with JSON, introduce another layer with Django REST framework, and the amount of time and complexity, and usually the number of developers and introduced by this new layer is not feasible for many, usually back office applications. So the alternative that I present here, and maybe you've already seen it online, it's the use of HTMX. HTMX sends the data as HTML instead of JSON, so you don't need to serialize it. And you also have access to operations in the data itself because it's using hypermedia. So, as I said, HTMX is a recent JavaScript library framework, as you will, that is an alternative to using React in most cases. So it follows the original model of the web, and the last case or the upper objective of the original REST paper, that is sending hypermedia through the web. And the client doesn't need to know which operations. So like in React or Angular, you don't need to code the buttons or the handlers. The data itself sends the data and the operations it can perform on it. So you only need to change the backend to control the application functionality. How does it work? As many of you know, HTML forms and anchors only work, in this case, forms with get and post, anchors with get. HTMX allows you to use any DOM element as an AJAX request handler. In this case, it sends AJAX request from any element with any event handler, and it usually expects an HTTP response that has HTML. In this case, it will have a target element that will be swapped with HTML that is contained in the response. Its entire syntax, it's mostly HTML data attributes. It has some event handlers and in JavaScript, but it's mostly for edge cases. And it's with HTMX, we can send AJAX requests without ever leaving the HTML or writing any JavaScript. And the loaded blocks that are received by the response, or in this case, sent by the response, usually if they have HTMX data attributes, they are parsed, so they can be reused, and it works as in a recursive fashion. Some of the advantages is as I said, doesn't require serialization. You don't need to convert the data from the database or the ORM to JSON. The data is sent as HTML through the channel. If you need to upgrade, add operations, deprecate others, you just need to change the data structure. The state management is not performed by the client, so you don't need a context API or Redux, nothing like that. It's all performed on the server. The CEO problems caused by most front-end frameworks go away because you are just using HTML. And it provides a look and feel. If you know how to use it and you have a good designer, you can use it well to transform a page or a website into an almost front-end experience. So here we have a common example, a table or a list on a back office. Usually just use a list view. The example here is how to implement an active search without any JavaScript. We just override get query set to handle a certain get parameter. If it catches the get parameter, it will filter the query set. In this case, we are using name for searching like the name of a person. And if it detects the queue, we know we are doing a search, so we just want to send the table. We just want to replace the table and not the whole page. So also in get template names, we replace the regular template name by an alternative template. In this case, I've added it to partial template name. In the HTML, the only thing we need to replace is the action method in the method parameters in the form. Replace it by HTMX attributes. As you can see, AJAX get, it will perform a get request to the same page we are. It will swap the contents in the div with AJAX table wrapper ID. And it will trigger when we input something on the table search, in this case, that input down there with the class table search with a delay of 300 milliseconds, so it doesn't throttle, so it throttles and doesn't send a lot of AJAX requests. So next, how could we implement all that data altering operations in simple models using a single view instead of having create, update, delete views? We could combine everything into a create, update, delete view and sort the cases between HTTP request methods. So in this case, in a regular form, we just could use get or post. If you try to use delete, put, patch, it won't work. The browser won't let you. Anchors can only use get. And the workaround will be to use delete with a fetch call on an on-click event handler in the button. What's the best case scenario with HTMX? We can do everything with HTMX using Ajax get, post, put. We just need to select which method we want. And when the user presses a button to delete, it will delete the element by calling a delete method. We have a view assigned to it. In this case, that single view. That single view will dispatch in this case, it will be the code of the deletion. Yeah. So the deletion of the object, and it will return an empty string, for example, and it will remove a row of the table. Next, how could we solve the complexity of form sets? By using regular forms and HTMX. In these images, you can see I have a grid layout that could be compared to model form sets, and an inline layout that could be compared to inline form sets. And the way they work is we have the data is sent over various views. We have a view to list all the items in the objects we want to alter. One that sends only the item we want, and the one that performs create and delete actions, and one to delete it. So when we press an action button like delete, it will perform a delete action. So it sends to the server a delete request. The server will delete the object, and the response will be empty. So HTMX will swap it by an empty div, and it will disappear. So it's very interactive and doesn't need any page reload. The same thing for create and edit. When you press the pencil button right there, it will open an edit form for that object, and it will display on the bottom page, the bottom slot. So as I said, you need a view that displays the objects and has the action buttons, some kind of detailed view, a list view, and a view or multiple views that handle with create and edit functions, and a delete function. And the last two can even be refactored like I showed you before. So here is an example. You have the four views, each one representing the operations, the CRUD operations. And in the end, the result should be a redirect or a render in this case of the detailed templates that is the card, the single card. So if we delete an object, it will send an empty response. If we edit the object, it will re-render the object with the changes we made. Here we can see how the HTML changes were made. We have two action buttons on the right. You can see the first button acts as an update form. When we press it, it will trigger that form. In this case, the ID room row new, that is the one on the left, that acts as the one below the cards. And the other one will trigger a request to the delete view, and it will delete the object, and that view will return just an empty response, and it will delete the card. So next, how could we iterate or operate over complex methods? Complex models when we need a good UI experience. Django models usually scale, especially in large projects. We have a high amount of fields, and we could achieve a better UI if we split that model into sections. We could split into sections and have a huge scrolling page, but that wouldn't be the best case, especially in models that modulate complex processes, and we need to have steps that split them accordingly. So we created a special view that handles route management, has next and previous handlers, so we can create some sort of tabs to navigate between forms. Each form has a subset of the fields of the model, and it creates a timeline or some sort of wizard that you can use to modulate your models and do create update actions. This is an example of that interface and how even can be improved with HTMX. So you basically isolate the templates and check for HTTP header. If the HTTP header contains any AJAX reference, in this case, HTMX sends an AJAX request header in the request if it's being used. So you can always check for that and send just part of the template. If you send part of the template, just replace it with the contents of the div, and you have a very special interface without a little work. So next, how could we present form data and not creating a detailed view or even presenting data of a form without having the need to create a special template and a special interface? We could use a generic view that just substitutes the fields, the widgets, by its values using a custom form renderer. As you can see here, this is a case for that. We have a view that uses a custom renderer that replaces all the templates with templates that include only the value of fields. And in the way, it retains the form structure and layout, so you can reuse the same templates to view objects or forms and to edit them without giving access to the user or needing to code any permissions. So in this case, you see in your left the original form, on the right it has the same layout, the same style, but it's in some sort of read-only mode and doesn't enable post or anything like that. So next, when we have more advanced UIs, something like sortable or reorderable objects, how can we do that? There are many JavaScript libraries. There is Dragably, Packery, Sortable.js. However, one of the best solutions for sortables, and we have been using this in various projects, is to combine Sortable.js and HTMX, and together with hidden inputs inside the cards that allow for order management. So each element will carry its order when they are posted via HTMX or very regular form submission. You have this example. We have each card as that holder here that allows it to be reordered at will. Each element contains an ID inside. That ID represents the object. When we post it, it will send the list of elements in the order that was placed. Finally, for even more advanced UIs, usually the solution for better or for worse will be web components. This will avoid writing hundreds and thousands of vanilla JavaScript lines. That usually is what happens when we need something very UI intensive. Web components, for those who don't know, are custom HTML tags that encapsulate bundles of JavaScript. And these are usually built with front-end technologies like React, Angular, Svelte, and others. Right now, we are using Svelte. It's a very fast and lightweight framework, easy to prototype, doesn't depend on virtual DOM like React, and creates very small bundles compared with Angular. Here is an example. This UI, it's a sortable, but requires a lot more interaction. We have a search bar. The search bar allows us to filter the available speakers. In this case, this is for event management software. We have the speakers, they scroll horizontally. We can add them, they will switch to the selected tab. We can reorder them with drag and drop. And if we want to sort them by alphabetical order, we just press the AZ button. Next, and the last topic, how difficult it will be to implement HTMX inside Django Admin or some sort of hacky stuff. You can always copy the templates from Django Admin and replace all the anchors with AJAX GET and AJAX POST requests. So we did that, and it really worked, but had some little problems. But in the end, it showed how easy and fast it was to change from an MPA, multiple page app, to a single page app with very little time and in a small budget. That layout, the Django admin layout, it's very segmented. It's very simple in a way. It has common sections like the tables, the actions. So it's easy to replace parts of it. That's the point of the HTMX, just replacing parts of the page. So it's a demo. The page never changes. It's always /admin, but we are changing pages and entering forms and returning to lists without any interface. It will be better with an animation maybe, or a blur, something like that. So that's all. Thank you, and have a great PyCon.